Hey, good morning, everybody. Robert Phoenix back on the case. It is the 8th of July. The year is 2020. And oh, what a memorable year it is and will be in the annals of history, provided that history is recorded in the way that history has been recorded historically. And there's no guarantee that that will actually be the case. In any case, I'm here today with you, and we have a lot to cover today. So I'm just going to continue to hang out here for a little bit and wait for the troops to arrive, for the assembly hall to be filled, as it were. A lot to cover, a lot to talk about today. Every day there's just another wrinkle and fold in this so-called version of reality. Let me tell you what we're going to talk about today. We're going to cover a lot of ground and as quickly as possible. So, yeah, we're going to get into some of the Maxwell stuff, but there's some other related material that we're going to cover, and it does have to do with Donald Trump, and it could also converge with the Maxwell piece. I'm just going to talk a little bit about Kanye, not a whole lot about Kanye. I'll give you an update on the Kanye presidency, and there's just a ton of stuff to cover. Apparently, for you folks down in Australia, our friends from down under, you're going to be going into another lockdown, and I mean a serious lockdown. I've got some pictures. Wasn't aware of this, but I guess that's today, and everybody was out celebrating and being involved in, lunch and beer and wine, and then everything's going to get shuttered. I mean, how just surreal is this whole thing, right? Like, it's just incredibly surreal. So I'm going to get into some of that today. And there's just a ton of stuff. I can't even begin to cover how much we've got to cover today. I mean, it's just really kind of mind blowing. So again, I'll do my best to weave it all together. I also want to talk at some point about can we put closed captions on? I don't know. I don't have that ability inside of StreamYard, just to let you know, Seeker Spirit Vlog. I think I could do it post on YouTube. So I'll do it post on YouTube. Okay. I'll try it post on YouTube. And that way you can have the captions on YouTube. But I can't do it now. I do read your requests here. Let's say, who do we have here in chat? There's Justice. Hey, Justice, what's happening? DJ MC, Christy Tesmer, what's going on, Michael and Christy? Good morning, Judy. There's Kestrel, Frank Bry. Hi, Frank. Good to see you. Love the Penny Kelly interviews. I should talk about that for a little bit. I'm going to go over to the Penny Kelly thing in a bit. Thanks for that. There's Joe Mama. Hey, what's happening, Joe? Kevin from the Sunshine State checking in. Kevin says that Australia is kind of a rollout for what's going to happen in the U.S. I'm paraphrasing here. Let's see who else. Natasha Lloyd. Hey, Natasha. Chana's here. Hi, Chana. Let's see what else. Captions come up on replay. There you go. Good. Thanks, Kevin. That's what I thought, because I thought I enabled them previously. I just can't do it in the live setting. There's Rennie. Hi, Rennie. Kurt Judkins in the house. Let's see. Val says they remind me more of Americans than Brits. Nicholas Grimm, good morning. Michelle, hey Michelle, good to see you. Hope you're doing well down there. The other thing I want to talk about, Michelle's a mother, and I'm going to talk about the education piece. Trump made a big press conference last night. I want to get kids back to school, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was really interesting is that Fox had Betsy DeVos on. She's a Secretary of Education. Of course, she comes from the DeVos family, which is the Amway family. These are the DeVos family made a bunch of money on the Amway products. And I remember one time when I was living in Seattle, and I got brought over to because I was frustrated being a waiter, and I thought, I can do more than this. And I was talking, you just have these conversations with people who are at the table. You don't know sometimes who they are or what they're. I got weird stories around restaurants. I could write a freaking book about my time in restaurants. And oh man, especially like the vice side of restaurants. Like there is a heavy, and I know a lot of you probably worked in restaurants. There's such a heavy vice side to restaurants. Heavy vice side. Talking drugs, sex. Restaurants are so incestuous. Anyway, that won't be the focus of today's show, unless, of course, we want to talk about the restaurants closing down, in which case we probably could. Anyway, I was working in this restaurant in Seattle. I've talked about it before. It's a place called Wild Ginger, and it was, I think, on Western and Union. I always thought that was kind of cool, right? It was Union, and then there was Western. It was right on the corner there, and it was a big, beautiful Asian fusion style restaurant, and it was like one of the few that was open on the West Coast, and it was a very visionary restaurant in a lot of ways. And they had an open grill area. I mean, a real grill, right? And they were doing skewers of chicken and beef and vegetables, and glazed with all kinds of interesting things, whether it was coconut milk or a soy ginger sauce. So they had that big bar area, and the guys there were from all over the world. You guys from Cambodia. There was a dude who'd gone through the freaking killing fields in Cambodia that worked at this restaurant. He was the nicest guy in the world, sweetest guy in the world. And he had a scar in his stomach that was about 3, maybe 4 inches wide, as he was trying to escape Cambodia, going through the killing fields. He was stabbed by one of the Khmer Rouge, one of the sweetest guys. We had guys from China. We had all over the place. We had a Vietnamese guy. It was a great restaurant. Anyway, so I have a lot of stories from that restaurant too. But so I'm waiting on this table. I'm talking to this guy, it's kind of restaurant BS banter. And I'm saying, yeah, I really feel like I've got some skills that I'm frustrated here because I was going through my Saturn return, which I completely fucked up. But he says, oh yeah, well, are you interested in marketing? Yeah, I could see it. I might have an opportunity for you. Here's my card. And, I'm like, oh wow. Hey. And I found Seattle to be fairly unfriendly, by the way. So I was like, hey, somebody friendly me. So I was married at the time, and we go over to this place, this guy's house. And I'm thinking, okay, well, let's see what happens. And it turns out that the marketing opportunity was Amway. Actually, it was like an Amway spinoff. It was sort of like, okay, somebody from Amway decided, maybe they got the papal blessing from Amway, and they decided to do their own thing, and Amway's going to get a cut of whatever they were doing. And I'm like trying to wrap my head around this whole thing. And it's like buying the products and marketing the products. I'm like, and this is not what I had in mind. I thought there was something a little sexier around all this. But that wasn't the case. And of course, there was also the religious element too. And this guy was a Christian, and they bring the two together. So you have this organizing principle between commercialism and Christianity. And so they have a very nice little marriage, nice little wedding between the two. Theoretically, hey, why not? If you practice good business, have good principles, good scruples, then I don't have an issue with it. Just practice good business, right? So, anyway, last night Betsy DeVos was on Fox, and then the follow-up person on Fox was Eric Prince, which is her son-in-law, who was the guy who started Blackwater, which was really bad news during the Bush administration, because Blackwater was hired out to go into Iraq and be contractors in Iraq. When I say contractors, they're not building stuff, okay? They're not out there building shelters and water systems and all that. No, they're contractors, meaning that they don't have to do or answer to the same kinds of protocols that the American military does. They're like free agents, right? And they're not held accountable. They do whatever they want, whatever they're told. So, of course, he rebranded Blackwater, and it became ZE. Now, he's out there and he's sort of becoming this public politico. Keep your eyes on Eric Prince. Interesting. All right, let's get into this. Dear blessed and holy Father, Mother God, the great central sun, which is the universal light, which is the light of Sananda, Yeshua, Emmanuel. We ask that only the highest and best information and wisdom come through this channel at this time. We also ask that we are imbued with the qualities of joy and courage and faith and humor, discernment, flexibility, empathy, and endurance. We ask these in the name of the Most High. And if there are any karmic residue or connections or pieces of dross that we are connected to and share together, may they be cleansed, purified, resolved, and cleared away so that we may be able to move back into our experience at a place of being sovereign. So be it. Okay, we are now officially rolling. Okay, we're officially rolling. Miranda got a new dishwasher. Oh, who was it yesterday? It was a birthday today. Who was it? Hold on. I gotta go back to yesterday's show. Hold on. Give me 1 sec here. I know it's on the tip of my head. I know it is right here. Lisa. Hey, I'm not sure she's in the live. I'm not sure she's in chat landing, but Lisa Colbert, happy birthday to you. Happy soul return. Many blessings. Chris Ray came out swinging with some fierce statements against the generational theft committed by China against the United States of America. Yeah, so right now, the thing with China, you don't hear a lot about the copyright stuff or the patent infringement, or because everything is kind of out there now. That ship has sailed, and they've been enabled, and they've got so much of our technology, and some of it legally, a lot of it illegally. Speaking of China, it looks like TikTok is going to be shut down. I'm not going to shed a tear over that. But I have been thinking about China as the role of the new Russia. And I want to talk about that a little bit. Of course, during the Cold War, we had the Russians as our main nemesis. And they were a nemesis, by the way. Like, Russia was a nemesis at a certain level during the Cold War. But at another level, they were also co-conspirators in a grand scheme to create a huge amount of tension and fear and paranoia, which allowed the military-industrial complex to really explode during the middle to latter parts of right now, the 20th and 21st centuries. It's that Cold War relationship with Russia that ramps everything up. And it's like, oh, we got to keep up with Russia. We got to have more than Russia. More. I mean, when we get into that sort of that stalemate, right, that nuclear stalemate, where theoretically we can all explode the planet 100 times over. I'm still not sold or convinced over the nuclear thing. I've had Jay Weidner opened my eyes up around the nuclear thing a few years back. So that's a whole other discussion, though. But that's what Russia was, right? But Russia, see, this is how the game works, right? Russia was a threat. It was a threat because they were inserting their agents into this country. Just watch Yuri Bezmenov. He breaks it all down. He's not the only one. They've been doing this for a while. And they were created, and then they were cast as these global villains where communism was moving around the globe. And it was. I mean, there was a definite threat of, this kind of communistic regime. Pol Pot, North Vietnam, North Korea, I mean, Cuba, the list goes on and on and on. But what people don't understand is that these regimes were aided and abetted by our own government in many instances. And you look at, this is what Anthony Sutton has done. Anthony Sutton really broke this down. He looked at what the United States was supplying Russia a lot during the Cold War, a lot. And and I've covered this before, what the United States would do is they would send Russia parts for things. parts for this and parts for that. And Russia would assemble them, and they would use these things against the United States in these various conflicts. So the military-industrial complex was making money going both ways. So the whole Cold War thing, just like most things on Earth, is paradoxical. Like it existed, and there was a real threat, and that at another level, the threat was theater in order to advance this other agenda, right? I think China has taken Russia's place in the new Cold War theater. Russia is still kind of lurking in the shadows, and a kind of an able scapegoat at any particular time. But who's to say really what's going on with China? Who really knows? Are we really finally deciding, hey, enough with this China shit? Trump is now saying we're going to make, all medicine has to be made in the United States. Well, all right. Well, who's he going to have to wrangle with that? He's going to have to wrangle the pharmaceutical companies who have profited mightily with their drugs being made in China. Do you think that this is the pharmaceutical industry, by the way, is the most powerful industry on the planet, bar none. They spend the most money lobbying in Washington. You could look it up, right? So they say, oh yeah, President Trump, we're going to move everything home now. We're going to move everything home. So, we'll make, instead of making, I don't know, $500 million on a certain drug. We'll make maybe, I don't know, $250 million. Now you and I, it's like, what? $500 million, $250 million? Just be happy with the $250 million. That's not how these people think. That's not how they operate. Okay. That's not how they operate, because they think if we're making $250 million, then, somebody else has figured out how to make $500 million. And if they're doing that, then we're going to lose. So we got to figure out how to make $500 million, and then, stay with them stride for stride. This is the downside of capitalism, and that, this whole kind of the idea of the free market, which is, I think, ridiculous, because there is no such thing as a free market. They took the free market and they used it as an excuse to loot, pillage, and plunder. The free market is what I would call sociopathic capitalism. I was never a big fan of not having tariffs. I think tariffs are important, and they wiped out the whole tariff structure a long time ago. I think they're important. They're very important. It helps equalize the idea of fair trade, not free trade. Okay. I'm into fair trade, not free trade. Because if you have free trade, theoretical free trade, right? What happens? The people who have the most resources can take advantage of that process, and then they can impose their will on people who have less resources. Fair trade, at the very least, creates some artificial boundaries, or even stipulations that keep things sort of in check in a government where that's actually being looked at and watched over, and that never occurs. And I don't care who you are, what party you're part of, it just doesn't occur. So when the Democrats, let's just call the Democrats communists now. Let's just dispel the notion that they're Democrats. They are representing the communist side of the ledger sheet. And Republicans, let's just call them communists too. And some of you may say, what? You call? Yeah, because they're aiding and abetting what's going on. And they've done this for a long time. So there are people, very few inside of both parties, that have a different kind of orientation, a different kind of affiliation, but they're not, they're not sort of the core or the foundation of those parties. They're outliers. So both sides are conspiring now to bring us this new thing. That doesn't mean the new thing is going to come, by the way. Anyway, things are never what they seem. But what happened is that this whole free market piece just got completely. The Democrats are a big part of it too. They're big globalists, man. They're big globalists. They never sat down and said we need tariffs and we need to protect our workers. They're all about the union. They're all about the union, but they're not about creating the structures internally to support those unions so that there can be really fair manufacturing and really fair trade. They're all globalists. And again, this is what Anthony Sutton presciently, figured out. And if you have not watched his videos, you haven't read his books, I highly recommend them. And who knows? Maybe he was an insider. I don't know, right? But he's a guy that taught at Stanford, and he went down some serious rabbit holes, and he tore apart Skull and Bones and looked at that, and really, was very, very effective at giving us an X-ray view of what that group organization is all about, right? And he went even beyond that. So tip of the cap to Anthony Sutton. And he was the guy that really drilled down into the problem, reaction, solution model. Okay. So do a crash course on Sutton. All right, let's get going here. There's just a lot to cover today. I'm not even sure where I want to start. Okay. I want to talk about the Maxwell stuff a little bit because this is important. There are two things now that Trump is going to have to deal with. One is the book with his niece. And you got to keep in mind now that his niece is not just anybody, right? His niece is, she has a PhD, if I'm not mistaken, and she's a psychotherapist. Now, not just because you're a PhD and you're a psychotherapist does not mean that you're good. All right. We've seen people in mind control programs with all the credentials, and what do? They use their power and their influence to shape reality and create all these new DSM definitions and all that shit, right? So just because you have a credential and you're credited and all that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're good or worthy, right? Most people fall somewhere in between with some real character. Some people can really kind of hold the fort, hold the space, and practice valuable principles. But what I'm trying to share with you is she's just not a nobody. She's accredited. Okay. She is accredited, and she gets into Trump's personal history. And, I don't disbelieve her. I've always said that you cannot trust Donald Trump. I said this from the first time he got very serious, and I looked at his chart. I'm like, well, you can't trust this guy. You can't trust him. And whether it was Bibi Netanyahu or whomever, Michael Flynn, you can't trust him. It's in his chart. He's a wild card. Sometimes, the card will come up aces, and sometimes it'll come up jokers with Trump. It's the way he is, and he's wired differently. One of the things that she talks about in this book is his father, and I don't disbelieve what she has to say about his father. His father, if you look at his father looks like a creep. Fred Trump looks like a creep. And she gets into stories where Donald Trump was sexually abused. He's got Pluto in Leo in the 12th house. And Pluto in the 12th house is usually a harbinger of something deep and dark and hidden in the individual's past. It's a secret. It's this kind of dark kind of piece that motivate. And we've seen this. I've seen this with a number of really well-known people. Famous people have Pluto in the 12th house because it drives them. Pluto is about obsession and compulsion. And in the 12th house, it's the house of the soul, right? So they're being driven at a deep level to do something for better or worse. And I've listed them before: Muhammad Ali, Pluto in the 12th house; Katy Perry, Pluto in the 12th house; Tom Brady, Pluto in the 12th house; Donald Trump, Pluto. Those are just a few examples. If I went online really quickly, I could find you about a dozen more. And you would see the pattern. And it's this thing that happens to them at a deep level that drives them, for better or worse, to either cover it up, to transcend it, whatever that thing is, right? So, and I've approached this subject before about his past. There's a dark secret in Donald Trump's 12th house. Okay, So in the book, she talks about how he was sexually abused. That does not surprise me at all. Doesn't surprise me at all. And of course, one of the big issues is the older brother, Fred Jr., and there are examples of how Fred Sr. just completely ruined him. And he left the family. He decided he didn't want to be a pilot. He didn't want any part of the business. So he became a pilot for TWA, Trans World Airlines. And eventually, he was a very heavy drinker. I don't know how he managed that with being a pilot, but he died at a very young age, 42. And then when he left the family, Donald moved up into the number one slot, into the number one position. And there are other tales of, kind of his past and what she ascribes to his psychological makeup and psychological behavior. So this is an important piece because this book is about to get launched. Now, there's another piece here, which is the Ghislaine Maxwell stuff, which we talked about yesterday, and probably going to be talking about for a while up through Friday and beyond. And we're gonna have theoretically the person that's in that theoretical jail cell again is her. We're gonna operate from that place. We'll operate. I'm not sure it is. I'm not sure anybody could officially say that that's the case, given what we know about doubles and clones, and there's too many variables, But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that it is her. All right, that it is her. So that's going to start to happen on Friday. Keep your eye on Friday. Friday's a big deal. That's when she's supposed to appear before the public. And one of the things that Fox News did is, like, there's a lot of videos and there's a lot of images with Trump and Ghislaine and Jeff Epstein, a lot with Trump and Epstein. Okay, so this stuff is going to come up. And I feel like this is the next shockwave, that it's going to be related to the book, and it's going to be related to Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein. So if you are a Trump supporter and you believe in Trump, you better get you got to mentally prepare here, right? And the thing is now is Trump is so bound up and intertwined with this idea of making America great again, trying to find an organizing principle for the country, that there are people who have stood up and said, hey, man, I'm for this, I'm with this. The absolutely most deflating moment would be if these things and these allegations, which are really beginning to, kind of bubble up, if they wind up being true, or even remotely true, you're going to be looking at one of the most demoralizing moments in the history of this country. Okay. You think, so I would take the Clinton stuff, the Nixon stuff, right? All those things, Abu Ghraib, roll them all up into one, and they might measure up to about a quarter of what we could be staring at in about 5 to 6 weeks. And we're just about 100 days out now, 119 days out from this so-called election. We'll see about that. So this is big stuff. This is really, really big stuff. Now, Whitney Webb put a video out about a month ago, and there's a gal. What's her name? Hunter, I believe, is her last name, and she was one of Epstein's girls, right? One of Epstein's girls. And again, I'm just sharing with you, what I've seen, and these are very explicit details about a relationship, and not a pretty one, with Donald Trump. I'm just, this is a truth channel, okay? And sometimes I will say things in order to get you to think and understand. Very important. It's very, very important, right? You have to have a mindset. So the mindset is be prepared for something like this. Be prepared. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because when Donald Trump was running and got elected, people kept saying to me, "Oh, why are you posting this? He's just a scumbag." Well, it's like, yeah, you want to play business in New York City, you got to go to Scumbag University, because that's how business is done in New York. And I'm not giving him a pass, but of course he is. Do you think you can do business in New York City by being a well-schooled, genteel, and fair person? Like, you better just take that thought right out of your head. New York City is a training ground for master master psychopaths or master sociopaths, mostly sociopaths. Psychopaths have remorse. Sociopaths don't have any remorse. So that New York is an open air university for sociopathological development and sociopathological ideas, sociopathological wiring is part of the capitalist model. And I'm not here to dispel capitalism. I'd rather have a flawed version of capitalism than any form of communism and any form of socialism. I just want to be on the record. I'm not here touting socialism, okay? But it's a virus. And the virus infected this system. And so what happened was, in order to be successful in the system, you would take advantage of the system. And once people took advantage of the system, other people understood this and they said, we must take advantage of the system too, or the other sociopaths are going to rule over us and crush us. They'll crush our business. They'll crush our model. So in order for us to compete, we got to be like them, right? This is how the game works. And it's unfortunate. Right? It is, it's kind of the law of the jungle, eat or be eaten. And I'm not praising it. I'm not condoning it. I'm just giving you, the cold hard facts around this shit. If you're a good guy and you're a nice guy and you want to be fair and all that, you are not going to go very far. You'll get to a certain point and you may build a nice little business and everything, but trust me, the TP and the powers that be, they'll keep an eye on you. They'll notice you. They'll see your income. They know everything that's happening. And they'll approach you and they'll say, look, you run a nice little business here. If you want that business to continue and even thrive and, be bigger and support more people, you need to have a sit down with us. So we're going to show you a few things. We're going to tell you a few things. If you want to do that, that's great. You're on our team. And not only will you prosper at this level, you'll prosper beyond your wildest dreams. In the meantime, you'll wind up selling your fucking soul. Like this happens. And this is what happened to people like Rockefeller and Getty and Carnegie and all those cats, right? JP Morgan. They were all kind of, rolling and kind of running the show as the robber barons. And then Jacob Schiff came to town, who was the basically the fixer for the Rothschild family. And Jacob Schiff sat down with all of them and said, hey, look, you guys are doing great. I work for Mr. Rothschild and want you to sit down and have want to have a talk. We want to share with you our vision of America, your role in it, and how you can all prosper if you work with Mr. Rothschild. And they all went, nah. It's okay, fine. I think it was like, 24, 48 hours. Rothschild had manipulated the markets. They were losing shitloads of money. And then he said, hey, would you like to have that meeting again? Had the meeting again and boom. Oh yeah, we're all ears now. Sure. Yeah. Well, this is a little place called Jekyll Island. And we got this thing called the Federal Reserve. And we got this thing called fiat lending. We got this thing called taxation. And we want you guys to run this thing. We're going to get this thing launched. It's all pre-1913. You're going to run this thing. And you need to build it. And so they did. That's what they worked on. The creature from Jekyll Island. Now, what was interesting about that time is that those guys, those bankers, they openly discouraged the whole central bank idea. No. We believe in a strong foundation. We believe in a real dollar and an honest dollar. We would never do anything like that. So they were parroting that shit, and they were creating this whole kind of Federal Reserve idea. Anyway, that's how it works, right? That's how it works. They sit you down. So you can't get above a certain place. And then what happens is that it's like the vampire's kiss. You now become one of them. One of them. There is some very interesting material right now floating around with the Hollywood insiders. And it's the same model. This director has come out and said that, that Hollywood has completely been taken over by vampires. And we know that. And if you go on to Reddit or Instagram, you'll see the list of all the people. You guys are sharp. You know who a lot of them are. But essentially, he's saying, look, and this is true, by the way, you look at what's happened with Hollywood. You look at what's happened with the movie business. And I'm a big movie buff. I'm a big movie aficionado. And, I was really thrilled to be, to be able to witness, I think, the greatest era of movie making, which is, in my estimation, from the 1950s, right around the mid 1950s, to about the mid 90s. There are a bunch of 80s. I'm not a big fan of 80s cinema. There's some good 80s movies, but for me, it's like that sweet spot is the 60s and the 70s. Really, those are some amazing movies, and that's before the CIA basically told Hollywood, you can't make films that paint us in a bad light. Right? I think the last film that did that would have been 3 Days of the Condor with Robert Redford, which is a very good movie, by the way. Anyway, now the game is you can't be an A-list actor, you can't get a movie made, you can't do any of these things until you're initiated, and we know what that means. We know what the initiation means. It's red shoes, right? That's the initiation. So again, we see this principle. You can't get to a certain level until you agree to do things. Once you agree to do those things, you're in. They elevate you. Doesn't matter how much talent you have or don't have. Like, Chrissy Teigen might be one of the most untalented people I've ever seen. I don't know. I mean, who knows? Maybe she can sing Madame Butterfly. I don't know. I've never seen it. Now, her husband, John Legend, that guy's got some talent, but I don't think he's got any originality. He has no originality. I don't see any originality there. Period. End of story. And you look at those actors that came out, I don't think there's a lot of originality. I will say, though, that Bill Murray is on this list. And, I've always felt Bill Murray is like, funny guy and everything, but I've never, I try not to attach to people in that way. I learned a long time ago. Like, for me, when I started to really look at this idea of idols and people who are these icons for truth and all that stuff, and then you look at really who they are, what they're about, and you look at their behavior and the links and the connections, like, can't go there. Just can't go there. Gotta whack-a-mole on that. And so I just don't get attached. But Bill Murray is one of those guys who's kind of this, interesting culture hero. He's on this list, right? And Bill Murray's a Mason, by the way. A lot of comedians are Masons. I wonder if Jackie Mason was a Mason. Well, technically he was. Or technically he wasn't, because that probably wasn't what his real name was anyway, right? So I'm into semantics now. Okay. This is the game, right? You gotta pay to play. You gotta pay to play. So we see this in the movies. We see this in industry. Kay Griggs talks about it in her videos. You want to get above sergeant, you got to pay to play. You want to rise above the level of sergeant, what do? You got to open Solomon's temple, right? Solomon's temple. And Solomon's temple is not a physical structure living in or built and erected in the Holy Land. Solomon's temple is in you. Okay. So this is the law of the jungle. This is how it happens. And so when we look at the ascent of any president, really any president for a very long time now, they're all marked. Every single one of them, even Donald Trump, he's marked. I guarantee you, he is marked. You don't get there without being marked, without having some form of potential leverage that anybody could use against you at any time. The most vulnerable people wind up becoming presidents of the United States. Trust me on this. And Trump is in the same category, right? He's in the same category. Now, we've talked about this idea that, did Trump have this, Saul, Paul on the road to Damascus moment? Yeah, it's quite possible. It's quite possible. Maybe, just maybe, some of the fake evangelicals actually got to him. It's possible. What's the guy's name? Bill Schonenblum, or the guy who was the high mage and he became an ordained minister. Happened to him. It happened to him. He was told to go hang out with the Mormons, that the Mormons were the highest mages on the planet. And so he said, okay, I've mastered all these other dark arts. Let me learn from the best of the best. And he got into being a Mormon, and he wound up finding Christ, inadvertently through Mormonism. And so he, does this hard right turn and, swears to living holy God and all that stuff, right? So it's not impossible. Even if you're in an environment where the ideas that are being presented are cover ideas for an entirely different operation. Could people like Franklin Graham and Paula White and, all these other laying on the hands of people, could they have inadvertently changed Trump, switched Trump, flipped Trump? Yeah, sure. It's possible. Absolutely possible. And this is an interesting topic, right? And I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm just laying it out there that it's possible. Is that people can change. They can have very profound, revelatory, I'm going to use the T word. It's almost all completely overused now. Transformation. Because when we talk about transformation now, it's like, well, we can transform the United States. Well, what does that mean? Transformation is the process where you die and then you're reborn. Okay. So you got to wrap your head around the dying part first. Okay. So could that happen? Could it happen to, yeah, it can happen to anybody. Absolutely. This is the, this is sort of the golden rule. This is the out, right? This is the out to the cul-de-sac of this matrix false creation story, is that moment, right? And I've seen it happen. It happened to me. It happened to me in my 20s. I went from being a complete and utter underachiever who was much more interested in my own self-gratification, in my own highly egotistical personal mythology, to being somebody who had all that ripped away, starting at ground zero and building it back up in a completely different body. So it happened to me. And, and it's happened to me more than once, actually, because I got a thick head. Anyway, so yeah, could it happen to Donald Trump? Absolutely. Absolutely could happen to him. So I'm giving you another side of this, right? These things are not mutually exclusive. Not mutually exclusive. But I could go down a list of presidents. Where do you want me to start? You want me to start with Harry Truman? Harry Truman was a Mason, big time Mason. Not the brightest guy in the world, by the way. Not the brightest guy in the world. But he was a Mason. He hired the first, quote unquote, Jewish Supreme Court justice, at least, on the surface, Louis Brandeis. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, right? But it's clear that when Truman moves into the presidency, there's a whole other kind of influence that begins to assert itself in the United States. We could go back even further. We got Roosevelt. The guy was a scumbag traitor. Prior to Roosevelt, we had what's his name? Woodrow Wilson. Another guy, just another traitor, total traitor. Right? These people are not good. So the presidency is marked by people who could be compromised. Wilson was compromised. Roosevelt probably compromised too, deeply compromised. And he was living with a man. How much more compromise can you get with that? Truman, totally compromised. You get Dwight Eisenhower. Eisenhower had a bit of the wake-up call at the end. He's a Libra. He's trying to balance things out, right? At the end of this, you watch that speech when he leaves. He knows what's going on. He's like, okay, I got to balance this shit out before I leave. Right? That's the Libra in him. But again, compromised. Kennedy, deeply compromised, way compromised. His past, his father, the connections with people like Meyer Lansky and Bugsy Siegel, and then the Italian mafia and the Bronfmans, and it's like deep. You dig with Kennedy, and you find the dirt. It's there, right? It's there. Onassis, he basically was bringing rum up from South America along with heroin. I mean, that's how Onassis made his money. He didn't make his money by having nice, wonderful cruise ships. It's funny. They had that movie, The Great Tycoon. I think that's what it's called, The Great Tycoon. And it's with Anthony Quinn playing Onassis, and Jacqueline, what's her name? Charlie's Angels gal plays Jackie. It's really kind of coded. But if you want to see like the Hollywood version of that relationship, go watch that movie. There's not a lot of dirt in the movie, but they're kind of telling you this is what this is about. So Kennedy was deeply compromised, and he knew this. The family knew this, and I do think that Kennedy was trying to change some stuff. He went into flip the script, which kind of brings him into the Trump timeline. Johnson, deeply compromised. It's another guy. Then we get into who? Nixon. Nixon's an interesting character because I don't think Nixon is compromised vis-a-vis his past. I don't think that was really the case with Nixon per se. Although you dig deep enough, you'll find something on anybody, right? Nixon got compromised inside the office with Watergate, so they had to remove him. But then you get into Ford, formerly known as Leslie King, right? And you go into Kathy O'Brien's book, and there he is. There he is. He's showing up in there. And who's the vice president? Nelson Rockefeller. Do the math on that. Okay, Jimmy Carter may not have been compromised early in life per se, but clearly, the globalists have their claws into him. CFR, Council on Foreign Relations. They got their claws in Carter. And again, during office, what happens? He becomes compromised. I'm not a big Carter fan, by the way. I'm not a big Carter fan. I had to sit through that presidency as a young man, and I thought the guy was just completely and utterly ineffective. And of course, it's a setup because they want to bring somebody like Reagan in. Reagan was compromised. He was totally compromised. You go back and you look at his Hollywood career and his role in the Screen Actors Guild and what he did with the Screen Actor. He made some major things happen in that, because at a certain point in time, you could not have if you were in management, you managed people, right? Like actors or actresses, you could not also be involved in the studio. And there was a separation of church and state. Reagan changed that. He changed it. And he changed it for some very, very powerful people. So he was compromised. And those powerful people, catapulted him into the office of the presidency. He's got George H.W. Bush, right? Deeply compromised. That's a bad family. You go in there, right? You find all that shit. Then after that, well, geez, we got the Clintons now. Bill Clinton, are you kidding me? He's the poster child of being compromised. And in his past and during the presidency. Who's after him? Well, then you got the younger Bush. Again, dig deep enough. Compromise. He's deeply flawed, but also connected. So there you go. That's a slam dunk. What about who after Bush? You got Barack Obama. Are you kidding me? Man, this guy's totally compromised. From his Frank Marshall Davis roots to a lot of the seamy underbelly stuff that kind of oozes out of Chicago, like the Donald Young stuff. I mean, this really creepy stuff, which nobody paid attention to. I did. And that dude is compromised big time. Okay. Big time. And they're all compromised. And Trump is not immune to this. The difference is that can that individual really show or experience a change of heart, a change of mind, a change of consciousness? And in a lot of ways, we're all compromised. We all have things in our past. We all have our little 12th house kinds of secrets and moments, right? But can we transcend them? Can we transcend those things? And can we move to higher spiritual ground? My answer is unequivocally yes. Unequivocally yes. Now, saying that, I also believe that if there is some sizzle to the steak with Trump and the Epstein stuff and the Maxwell stuff, and I don't really care too much about the sisters, the niece's book. That doesn't, that's more of a tool to sway people to not elect him. Okay. It's the other stuff that I need to wrap my head around. And if that is the case, right? If that is the case, then what needs to happen, and again, this is all a mindset thing. Okay, you can make up your own decisions in your own mind. You may say, Robert, you're full of shit. You're turning on. Look, I'm not. This is a truth channel. Okay. I'm actually stating that if a person has that Saul Paul on the road to Damascus moment, right? And all of a sudden, and by the way, I'm not a big Saul Paul guy. I'm just using this as an example. You can have that moment. You can have that conversion experience, whatever that means for a person. And then you wake up, right? That is plausible. And if that is the case, then no matter how compromised you are, in the eyes of the Logos, right? in the eyes of the Most High, you will be able to be exonerated from any past sin, theoretical past sin, any past compromise. But in order to do so, you got to be humbled. You have to be humbled, seriously humbled, in a very powerful way, in a real way. Now, not in the fake, like get on one knee and, get in the street and take a knee for. That's not it. That's like a whole manufactured event. Okay, so if that's the case, and he has that moment, or anybody, it can be Barack freaking Obama. I don't care. But if they have that moment, that real moment, does it exonerate them from what they've done in the past? You be the judge. You be the judge if you want to, right? But if they have that moment, that real moment, I tell you, in the eyes and the heart and the mind of Logos, the Most High, that moment, for all of its terribleness and decrepitness, is forgiven. It's forgiven, and not in a way that is like a Hallmark kind of platitude or a Hallmark experience. Not at all. Not at all. When I had Saturn going through my 12th house back in 2012 and 2013 and 2014 in Scorpio, lit up my 12th house, man. It lit up my 12th house. And I got to look back on the previous 30 years of my life. Ooh, that was not a fun experience. Let me tell you, that was not a fun experience. I went through about 4 or 5 days where I could not sleep. Okay. I was being kept awake. And there were periods I was doing my show back then, and I had to stop doing my show for a while because I was just so dysfunctional at that point. So dysfunctional, really, really dysfunctional. And I was awake for about 3 or 4 days, couldn't sleep. I was being haunted, man. Those demons of the past 30 years, they were like, being aroused, right? They were coming alive, and I had to deal with them. I had to deal with a lot of my actions, inactions, and stuff that happened during that prior 30-year period. Like, I'd done some good stuff, I'd done some good things, but that's not what that moment was about. It wasn't about the good things. So I'll never forget. I've told this story before. And everything, by the way, whenever I tried to turn away from the truth, whether it was watching TV or something, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It was like a scene from a movie where somebody's trying to escape something, and everything they turn and all the signs, you just can't get away from it. You cannot get away from it. I couldn't get away from it. It was like fucking, literally, it was driving me mad, which it was supposed to do, by the way. So I'll never forget. It was very cold. It was I believe December, and I went down to the local diner, and I've told this story before. I sit down next to this old dude. I'm like, I'm trying, and I'm like, sort of trying to, transition out of this period where I had to really, deal with a lot of shit. And I'm like, let me just go down to the diner and let me have a mundane moment, a moment that grounds me. So I sit down at the counter. There's a little old guy there. He looks like a cool little old guy. I'm going to talk to him. Then about, I don't know, 2 minutes into the conversation, he says, "You want to hear a joke?" I said, "Sure. I've told this story before. I'll tell it again." "Sure. What is it?" He says, "Do you know how they make holy water?" I'm like, "Okay, here we go. How?" He says, "They boil the hell out of it." I'm like, "Fuck. Are you kidding me, man?" This guy, I'm like, I can't even go and get a freaking omelet with hash brown potatoes without being hunted down and haunted by this experience. And at that point, I'm like, shit, man, this is going to end when it's supposed to end. And it was weird. I'm telling you, it was a really, really weird time. It was so weird. Let me tell you how plastic reality is. Okay. It was so weird that I remember watching, I was very big into Facebook at that time, and which I'm really not right now. In fact, I hardly ever go there, and I need to go back there for a few things. But there was a woman who popped up on my feed, and she just started ripping me. And I kind of barely knew this woman a little bit. And man, she just lit into me. And I, for no apparent, I didn't post anything. It was really intense. And that's when I knew, right? That, I mean, I knew before, but it was like, at that point, it's like, shit, this thing is really on. There's something that's being unleashed inside of me that I have to look at and I can't turn away from. This is how it works. You can have those moments and like, man, you get to those moments, you're humbled and you go, okay, this is way above my pay grade. You got to help me out in this one. Well, you better fucking pay attention. You can't be an asshole like that. Okay. You can't be an asshole. So these moments are available to us, but you got to pay attention and you got to be able to, pay the piper, as it were. Right. So can it happen? Can Trump have that moment? Could Barack Obama have that moment? Sure. I mean, theoretically, if they're real people, right? For real people, and they still have some connection with their soul, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's available to everyone. Okay. Just saying. All right. Enough preaching about that. But be prepared because some of the stuff you're going to hear that's going to come out, it will not be pretty. And I feel like if that's the case, and if this stuff is going to go nuclear, and it really could, that the best thing that we could hope for in a situation like this, and if Trump is involved, right, you're going to see like some of that. What's her name? Sarah? Is it Sarah Hunter? I think her last name is Hunter. Anyway, Whitney Webb interviewed her. She had a phone thing. She had a video thing. If this is the case and it does go nuclear, you better hope that it goes nuclear across all the platforms, and that it takes out everybody. Okay, that is the best and most hoped for scenario. I'm giving you what mindset. Okay, I'm giving you mindset, and mindset has a lot to do with truth. It doesn't have to do with projection. It doesn't have to do with hope. It doesn't have to do with nostalgia. It's like being clear and understanding sort of the impending severity and the impending intensity of what lies ahead. Okay. So I'm just telling you, get prepared. Doesn't mean that you have to give up believing in the country. I'm not saying that. There's a lot of, I think we have the potential of doing something different here. And I'm going to be upfront. It is independent of Trump. It's independent of Trump. It's independent of the people and all the Goldman Sachsers that are around him. It's independent of Joe Biden. It's independent of Alicia Garza. It's independent of all these people, right? Because they're writing that script. They're writing the script. We're not writing the script per se, but we can. And these are calamitous times, and when there's a lot of chaos, people will try to take advantage of the chaos and move this thing in whatever direction they want. Okay. That's what's going to happen. Don't fall for the chaos. Stay centered, stay really centered, and just keep in mind, right? Just keep in mind that there is another paradigm coming, and it will come, whether it's the World Economic Forum reset Agenda 21 version model, which is a real reality. It is a valid reality. Or there's another version of this coming, which is another valid reality, which does not get publicized on the mainstream media. And that's where you come into play. That's where you come into play. You got to hold space for that reality. You have to invite that reality in. You do that every single day. All right, let's get into some of this other stuff. A lot to cover. A lot to cover. And I don't have a lot of time. I got about a half an hour, and I'm sorry I got but this is important shit, right? This is like high level stuff. So I'm trying to figure out where I want to go. Where do I want to go? Okay. Let me get into some censorship stuff. Stefan Molyneux just had his Twitter account removed. Banned from Twitter, banned from YouTube. Stefan Molyneux has been canceled. Now, I know a lot of people that like him. I've seen a few of his videos. I think Stefan is brilliant in a lot of ways. I think he can be very, very funny in a lot of ways. I also think that is he the most is he the guy that they really want to go after, need to go after? Is he the most wanted poster? Hanging around the meeting places of the far left or the fake right or whatever. I don't know. I mean, he doesn't seem that way to me. which in and of itself is kind of disturbing. Like there are other people that they should probably, if they really wanted to ban some people, delete some people, Molyneux he's tame in comparison. He's pretty tame in comparison, to a lot of other people. But they still, like Adam Green. Like, why is I think he's still on YouTube? Why does Adam Green still have a channel? Maybe you can ask that question for yourself, right? No more. Why does that guy still have a channel? I think he's still on YouTube. Why does he have a channel? Why was he not banned? You talk about inflammatory material. That guy's flammable. He's walking around with an accelerant. He, instead of a deodorant, he like uses an accelerant. That's how flammable that guy is. And I'm not sure if I think he's still on YouTube, by the way. He's still there. Why Molyneux? It's weird. It's like a weird thing. Did they just look at views and say, okay, we're just going to take the most views and we're just going to, start to, go from Alex Jones on down? Well, it goes beyond that. So I want to show you kind of where we are in this era of not just material with censorship material, but also the what we call economic censorship. And this has to do with the founder of Gab. Okay, so I'm going to show this to you. So Visa personally blacklisted Andrew Torba, the founder of Gab, an alternative to Twitter. So he has faced targeted persecution and industry blacklisting. This is on July 7th. This is yesterday. So the founder of a social messaging website dedicated to freedom of speech says a credit card company has made it impossible for him or his wife to take credit card payments. Andrew Torba, the founder of Gab, an alternative to Twitter, told LifeSite News, this is not the first time he has faced targeted persecution and industry blacklisting. Our app is banned by both Apple and Google. Torba said via email, we were banned from PayPal, Stripe, Square, Coinbase, BitPay, and many other popular processors. We have banned from many other popular hosting providers such as Amazon, AWS. E. Michael Jones kicked off of Amazon. Right. So this is the purge. First, it is the digital purge, the virtual purge. This is where it begins. Well, it's already begun, but not been going on for a while. We were told this week that not only is Gab blacklisted by Visa as a business, but my personal name, phone number, address, and more are also blacklisted by Visa. If I wanted to leave Gab tomorrow, something is going to happen, and start a lemonade stand, I wouldn't be able to obtain merchant processing for it. Torba added that if his wife wanted to start a business, she wouldn't be able to obtain processing because she lives at Torba's address and therefore would be flagged by Visa. The entrepreneur told LifeSite News on Friday he can't share much more detail because he and his wife are seeking legal advice. He underscored that his company defends all political speech as protected by the First Amendment of the American Constitution. So there you go. It's not just Molyneux. This thing is a broadband, widespread operation, and it's not just speech; it's your ability to transact, which is probably a precursor anyway to what's coming. If we have to steer down the take the vax, or you're not going to be able to transact in the world. You get the COVID passport, all that bullshit. Let me just quickly show you a few other things because I don't have a lot of time, but I do want to get into a kind of a very particular story here. I wanted to bring this up. Yeah, this is what's happening down in Australia. So, maybe you folks in Australia who are in chat, and I know there's some of you there, can elaborate on this and share some this is just what I'm reading here. So you're going into a 6-week lockdown period there. Okay. Here we go. Bring this up. So these are seeds from Melbourne. We're paying attention. We're paying attention from up here. Oh, they're just having a final time. One final little groggy there before you're put back into your homes. Right. And there's a mass gang right there. Drinks, a quiet meal, and of course, panic buying. Melbourne's last hurrah on a sunny winter's day before the frustrating darkness of lockdown. As many businesses say, they won't be back. Here it is. This is like the movie On the Beach, which, by the way, does take place, if I'm not mistaken, at the end in Australia, where a nuclear plague is crossing the planet. Australia being the kind of the final place where people can hang out and not succumb to radiation poisoning. So there's a lot of kind of on the beach sort of vibe here, right? I'm noticing something here. Well, I'll keep it to myself. Okay, so we have Caitlin, Teresa, and Di Pasquale Teresa. They're at Vaughn's Restaurant Bar in Hardware Lane, Melbourne, CBD. I don't know what the CBD is. I guess that's a district in Melbourne. Okay, so there we go. Got to take care of that first chakra right there. Many were embracing and openly flouting the public distancing requirements that have doomed them to confinement. Right. This is interesting. D. Graves Street, in the heart of the city. D. Graves. Probably a person, but tear that word apart. Along the Yarra, pint met pint as work colleagues drank away the afternoon. From burger joints to Asian restaurants, crowds were seen lining the streets, sit down among friends and enjoy a simple meal. On Wednesday, Melbourne had come alive. Thursday would be dealt with tomorrow. Live for the moment. As the sun beat down, some Melburnians dared to strip off to their waists for a moment to pretend it was warmer. It will be practically spring by the time most venture back onto the streets of Melbourne again. For all that is known, it could be summer. Yeah, they want to keep the mask thing on for 2 years. Let that be known. So these are images that are frozen in time, right? These are images frozen in time. These are like the images that we see of the 1850s and the World's Fairs. Some people will see this and go, wow, look at this. Look at what these people were doing. Look at what these people were doing. What happened? What happened here? They were all out. They were having fun. They were enjoying wine. Look, they're enjoying themselves. This was supposedly this looks like it was a happy and content society. Young and old mixing alike. Nice little brasserie there. They'd be looking at these pictures. Now, this would be the what the fuck moment. They say, yeah, but what's this all about? What is this all about? I have one of those hats. But then they would be shown this. Oh, this is interesting. A little bit of Tartaria in downtown Melbourne. John Levi calling John Levi. And then we have the Antiquitech. And then we have the Satanitech. Antiquitech, Satanitech. Antiquitech, Satanitech. Yeah, they're just having a great old time. And then 24 hours later, this person is struggling. This person is having a moment. They're having a moment. It's like, oh boy. Yeah, big moment there. This guy knows what's coming. He's not happy. He's not. Some of you might have even eaten at Vaughn's. 6 weeks, and here they come. Oh boy. Oh boy. The virus police. There they are. Getting that last haircut. They're gonna look at this, go, oh, look. They were getting haircuts. Wonderful. These were civilized people. They'd look at this and go, where did these savages come from? This guy's looking pretty rough. He's looking pretty rough. They can say, oh my, this was a bustling and active society. My, look at all these people. They try to understand the mask thing. But you got a lot of people here not wearing masks. They are demasked. They're like basically saying, fuck you. You're going to keep us for lockdown for 6 weeks. Fuck you and your mask. Passive resistance, but resistance nonetheless. All right, let me check in with you guys in chat. I got a few more things to cover today. I got a really funny video. I'm going to keep you. That you're going to see by the end of the show. Let's see. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go way back here as far as I can in chat. Let's read some of your comments. I thought Carter was better than sliced bread. I know better now. Oh, Carter did a good job. He one of the most demoralizing presidencies was Jimmy effing Carter. Demoralizing. I've had contact with two former presidents. One directly and one indirectly. So when I was 16, this would make the year 1976, obviously, we were running around San Francisco. I was living in San Jose. And I used to like jet off to San Francisco during that time with my friends. So this was Halloween. So I think I had just turned, this was 1975. This was 1970, not 90, this was 1975. So Carter was running for president. Okay. And we were in San Francisco. I wasn't driving. 1975, a friend of mine drove. It's Halloween night. So let's go to San Francisco, man. It's going to be cool. It's going to be really cool. Let's just go up there. I mean, I'm living in San Jose, California, which is a farm town, really. So we drive up there and we park down by Fisherman's Wharf. We hang out and then we start walking. And we essentially, this is crazy, we walk from Fisherman's Wharf and we wind up in the Castro district. Okay. And I didn't know anything about San Francisco. I knew nothing about the Castro Halloween parade or anything like that. It was a freaking, are you kidding me? I'm like, I'm 15 years old. I'm hanging out with my buddies. I'm not high or anything, but San Francisco became a massive hallucination. We saw Jimmy Carter that night, and he was at that point kind of rolling around in a limo down by Ghirardelli Square, waving at people from his limo. But that night was a trip, man. That was a trip. You know, all the, costumery, and we had no idea what the Castro district was like. We were just walking. We saw all these people going in this one direction. Hey, like flies to a light. And I'll never forget, there was this one guy walking along, and clearly, there was this heavy gay atmosphere in 1975. And some dude, when there was this one gay guy who was like totally drunk, and all of a sudden this guy from the crowd just reaches and pow, smashes this guy in the face and knocks him out right in front of us. I was like, it was intense. So I went, that night ended. I went to school the next day. I'm like, what the fuck happened last night? That was crazy. That whole scene. I was like, wow, it was wild. Anyway, the other connection I had with a former president, George H.W. Bush. I'll tell that story someday. Not today though, because we're pressed for time. But for me, interesting story. All right. So Carter, bad news, Mr. Demoralization. Okay. So where do I want to go from here? All right. I want to just so much I want to talk about. But I wanted to talk a little bit about Keisha Lance Bottoms. We covered Trump. We covered a lot of the material that you're going to be dealing with here in the next few weeks. Mindset, right? Mindset. Well, by the way, apparently Kanye has decided he's breaking with Trump. Whether that's real or not, I don't know. Kanye has been, diagnosed as being bipolar. If it's Kanye, who knows who this individual is at this point. But he has shown a propensity to go. So now his presidency is going to be based on Wakanda. And the way that people have been cultivated and programmed, they may say, fuck yeah, man. Let's go Wakanda. I'm going Kanye 2020. And so, shit could take on a life of its own. Who knows at this point? We're living, we're living in an unhinged moment, right? The governor keeps an engine from revving up and doing 200 miles per hour versus 120 miles an hour. The governor in our so-called culture, in our so-called civilization, has been taken off at this point, which is good and bad, right? It's good for you because if that governor is taken off, man, you can accelerate through your life. In the outer, it's also weird acceleration. So the governor's off. All right, I want to talk about Lance Keisha Bottoms, and I got to try to bring this in pretty quickly. And I could probably do a whole show on her. So one of the things that's happened now, this is a woman. I'm telling you, this is the woman that they had pegged to be Joe Biden's running mate, and I'm going to get into why. Okay, I'm going to get into why. More her than Stacey Abrams, because I don't think Stacey Abrams has the peerage. And when they get into the stuff, and Eileen, who's a friend of the show, she's very good at understanding the peerage principle. I'm going to get into Keisha Lance's Bottoms peerage. It's important, right? And she really came onto the scene. She gave that great speech in Atlanta, but she is in a shitload of trouble because of the death of that 8-year-old girl. So what are they doing now? They're going to hazmat her. I'm going to show you how they are going to have, because this is the person that they want as Biden's running mate. Okay. I'm convinced of this. Nobody else. Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms says she's tested positive for coronavirus. So what is that going to do? What that's going to do, this is a very interesting little person right there with these shorts. We'll get into that a little bit. There's some meaning behind that. I'm not going to play the video. One of the top prospects to be presumptive Democratic presidential nominee, Joe Biden's running mate, said that Monday that she has tested positive for COVID-19. I've had no symptoms and have tested positive. Okay. She's talking to the other faker, Chris Cuomo. She received news that both she and her husband were positive, tested positive, 6 p.m. Monday. I'm still in a state of shock. It could be true. It could be true. She has an ACE2 receptor. It could be true. Low-grade fever, 99 degrees. Feverish, hallucinating dreams. Right. One of the bottom 4 children also tested. So she is going to be, there are 2 things here, right? I'm just going to take a good look at her. There are 2 things that are happening here. Number one, she's selling coronavirus. Okay. She's selling coronavirus. It's a big deal. Okay? I'm going to sell coronavirus. No symptoms, positive. Number 2, it gets her out of the public eye. Number 3, it creates a sense of, well, empathy. Oh, poor Mayor Bottoms. Poor Mayor Bottoms. She has a coronavirus. So we have sympathy, we have deep cover, and we have selling the malady. That's the trifecta right there. In a weird way, it slightly takes the edge off of what's happened in Atlanta with the Rayshard Brooks thing, whatever that was. And I'm not even sold on the Rayshard Brooks thing. But this thing with the girl downtown Atlanta who supposedly got killed, and she's taking heat. They got to put her on ice. That's what's happened. Because I believe they want her to be Joe Biden's running mate. Why do I say that? All right, I'm going to take you into her past. And I got about 12 minutes and I got to get out of here. So who is Keisha Lance Bottoms? To understand Keisha Lance Bottoms, you have got to understand who her father was, and who her father was married to, and who the mother of Keisha Lance Bottoms is. And I'm going to get into that as quickly as possible here. So the father of Keisha Lance Bottoms is this guy. And his name is Major Lance. Hence the Lance name, and her middle name, right? Bottoms, I believe, is the name of her husband. So Major Lance is an interesting character. He was an R&B singer, and he had 2 hits. Monkey Time was his biggest hit, and then became his second biggest hit. Now, he was a minor artist here in the United States, but in England, they had this very interesting dance phenomena called Northern Soul. And it took place at a casino. Like the whole Northern Soul thing took place at a casino in the north of England, in the Midlands, right? It's going to go in here. Asking humbly, hire reader. Seems that I use Wikipedia a lot. Yeah, maybe later. No. Let's just close this shit. Thank you. You're fine. You don't need my money. So yeah, the Wigan Casino, Wigan, I believe it's Wigan, Golden Torch, Stoke-on-Trent, which I believe is where who's Stoke-on-Trent? Is that Robbie Williams? And the Twisted Wheel. So the Golden Torch, Twisted Wheel, and the Wigan. The Wigan was the scene. So they would play these, really obscure soul classics, and it's a working class movement, and they were all these 45s they discovered. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, speed was a very big part of this culture. So these people would be speeded out. They would be dancing to this American soul stuff. But there was a limited kind of, content value. There were only so many of these records made. So he was born Major, Mager Lance, in Mississippi, as the 1-year-old son of Lucindy Lance, a widow. Lance's gravestone also confirms he's born in 1939. Major was his given name, not a nickname or stage name. So Major. Okay, 12 children, and he moved to Cabrini Green in Chicago, as many of the African American, so-called Black African American, move out of the South and move north to places like Detroit and Chicago, Gary, Indiana. Right, it's a major phase of migration in this country. Even places like Richmond and Oakland, California, they're all looking for work. Right, looking for work. So he has a relationship with this guy Otis Level. Went to Wells High School, same high school as Curtis Mayfield and Jerry Butler. Very interesting and iconic people. Apparently, he was a Spartley Fellow and a great basketball player. Mayfield called Lance. It was Curtis Mayfield. I love Curtis Mayfield, by the way. And his hero was Jackie Wilson. Okay, he was also a baseball player. Blah 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 blah. He's an athlete. Okay, so he has these hits on OK Records, and he has this Northern soul. He becomes this icon. And so he gets to tour England with a group, right, making money of this Northern soul explosion. Now, this is Keisha Lance's Bottom's father, and he winds up touring the United Kingdom. And he was supported by a band called Bluesology, and had a pianist named Reggie Dwight, also known as Elton John. Okay, so Keisha Lance Bottoms has like 1 degree of separation between her and Elton John, who, by the way, is a knight. Okay. Now, he could have just been could have been just a struggling musician with a group who hooks up with this guy. It's nonetheless a very interesting connection. So he comes back to the States, and, for all the touring, he's got a greatest hits record, blah, 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 recorded at the Torch, which is a club in Stoke-on-Trent. Comes back to Atlanta. He does a disco version of the song for Playboy Records. He sets up a new label called Osiris, okay, with former Booker T and the MG's drummer Al Jackson. Interesting name. Is there any hidden agenda or meaning? Maybe not. Maybe there is. Clearly, it's interesting, though. Okay. And then he later found his recordings have become popular on the beach music circuit in the Carolinas. So this is a guy that's got a back catalog that people discover over time. So he met this woman, Christine Boulard. Okay, Boulard, very interesting name, Lance. They have 9 children. Now, Keisha Lance Bottoms is not one of them, by the way. He was arrested twice in his life. In 1965, he was arrested in violation of the Paternity Act. Chicago woman Paralee Thomas claimed she had a son by Lance, Ronnie Maurice Lance, born on January 13th, 1964. She asserted that Lance had promised to pay her doctor and hospital bills around $375. He reneged. There was a warrant for his arrest. Okay. So then he recorded for a Motown subsidiary label. Then he was busted for coke, did a 4-year prison term. Then in 1987, he has a heart attack, glaucoma. 94, dies in his sleep. Now, here is the interesting note. Okay. So Keisha Lance Bottoms is the daughter of Sylvia Robertson. Sylvia. Now you notice here, we cannot click on her name. Click on Keisha's name. So who is Sylvia Robinson? I'll show you. Sylvia Robinson might be one of the most pivotal people in the history of modern music. And I'll show you why. This is Sylvia Robinson. Sylvia Robinson was part of a duo called Mickey and Sylvia. Okay, so this is Keisha Lance Bottom's maternal mother. That's her mother. Now, her real last name is Vanterpool. So Keisha Lance Bottoms is descended from the Vanterpool family, which it comes out of the Dutch Antilles. So she has a Caribbean Dutch ancestry. Now, why is Sylvia Robinson important? Well, she had a pretty good singing career. She had some hits. Pillow Talk was kind of a big hit. Love is Strange. She had some decent hits. There's the Pillow Talk song. She sold that. She sent it to Al Green. Green passed on it because he became a Christian, and she sang it, and it was a gold disc. Back then, gold discs actually meant something. And Robert Christgau, who's a big critic, Let's Get It On without production value. So it was like the female version of Marvin Gaye. Okay. And she had some other minor hits, but this is where Sylvia Robinson makes her mark. She starts Sugar Hill Records. And Sugar Hill Records is the embryosis of rap and hip hop. And she basically employed people, right? She employed people to basically go out and create these hip hop records. And she paid the people, like the Sugar Hill Gang. Rapper's Delight was basically a song that was stolen from somebody else. It's a very interesting story, Rapper's Delight, and how that whole thing happens. She also winds up putting out Grandmaster Flash and The Message. So this is a person who is really, really, really important, right? Really, really important. Rolling Stone selected The Message as one of the 50 greatest hip hop songs of all time. So it was sampled by a bunch of other people, but nobody got paid winning this stuff, which is another thing. So Sugar Hill folded in 85. Like, it starts off in like, what around 76, 77, 79. Rapper's Delight. By 85, it's done. Profile, Def Jam, put him out of business. She divorced Joe Robinson. The label was noted for signing the act New Style, who later left and found success as Naughty But. This is a very, very, very influential person. This is the mother, right? This is the mother of Keisha Lance Bottoms. So why is this important? Because if you go into the genealogy, it takes you into the Dutch East Indies. So Keisha Lance Bottoms comes from a Dutch background, Dutch lineage, right? So where have we seen this before? We've seen it with Kamala Harris, who has her background and peerage come from Jamaica. And her father said, hey, look, we come from a group of people that actually owned slaves. So without going and drilling completely down, I would assume that history is part of Keisha Lance Bottoms' background. If we dug deep enough, right, we would find that her Dutch peerage or her Dutch lineage, the Vanterpool or the Vanderpool family or Vanterpool family, were probably plantation owners in the Dutch Antilles. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm not making any value judgment around this, because this was kind of like how the world operated. And this has been cyclical, and there have been various cultures that have used and enslaved other people. This is the story of Earth, okay? It's the story of Earth. Underclasses have been subjugated and abused And if we can bring it forward into the 20th century, one could even make a case that the so-called working class was an elevated version of the same relationship. Now, again, I'm not going to tout the social Marxist, proletariat. I'm not going to tout their dogma, right? I'm not going to tout their dogma. But as we end of the third industrial revolution, we're no longer needed. We were hired help, and there was always a ceiling on, pretty much to some extent, how far we could go, at least in a certain world. There was a ceiling there. If you wanted to break through the glass ceiling, you were gonna get some shards. And I'm not saying that it's unfair. Like, we made a deal to come to this place, unfairness and all. So we have to move through this. That's every single one of us, and we all experience that in our lives. Some people more than others. Okay. So what I am saying though is that this is a very interesting connection. Now, I have not completely dissected the Vanderpool line, and she may actually come from a royal bloodline through Sylvia Robinson and the Vanderpool family. And Sylvia Robinson was not an inconsequential person. Sylvia Robinson might be one of the least known and most important people of the 20th century for her ability to spot this trend known as hip hop. Changed the world. Her mother, who you will not hear about, changed the world for better or worse. For better or worse. And people don't do those sorts of things, in my estimation, if they're just inconsequential people. There's something about them. Something either internally or something that allows them at a certain level to do what they do, whether it's part of their, somewhere in their DNA, or there's a group that's helping them move forward, whatever that is. Okay. And remember, Vanderpool on her mother's side, that's the family name. So she might have a bloodline connection, which again would set her up to be clearly a potential candidate for not only the vice presidency, but the presidency, if indeed Joe Biden is elected and something would happen to him. Right. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on Keisha Lance Bottoms, where she comes from, and now why all of a sudden, I'm not going to say she doesn't have coronavirus. Maybe she does. Maybe she tested positive. We know that a piece of fruit can test positive. A goat can test positive. I'm not comparing her to a goat or a piece of fruit, but the guy from Ghana, they say, hey, look, we did this and we did this and we did this, and they all tested positive coronavirus based on these tests. So a positive test doesn't always mean that it's a positive thing. Maybe in this case it's positive because it takes her out of the limelight and the heat in the streets in Atlanta. Oh, by the way, I have seen the National Guard now being deployed on the streets of Atlanta. Guess what they had? They got MRAPs. They're now finally bringing out the MRAPs. They themselves may not be armed, but the vehicles that they're rolling into the streets of Atlanta, they're MRAPed. Another side story to this, which is, again, kind of weird and interesting, is like there was a group of people, and I don't have the story in front of me. There's a group of people in Atlanta that were running around the streets of Atlanta, and they were like, they had guns and everything, and they were like, Black Panther, Black Power, and, creating this kind of, again, sort of intense and inflammatory street theater. Turns out they were actors. They were part of an acting group, and somebody hired them to play a role. I swear to God. A lot of what we're seeing here is stage theater, man. You just gotta keep that in mind. You have to keep that in mind. You really have to, look at everything through your third eye, these two eyes and this eye right here, and keep your heart channel open so you can see the stuff. And that even gets into the vulnerable areas. Those areas that we think are the most sacred and sacrosanct, like the relationship with Trump. You're gonna get some material that's gonna be exposed here in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and you better be prepared for it. And I'm sharing this with you so that you will not be demoralized. I'm your gatekeeper for demoralization. Okay. Because I don't want to be demoralized. I never want to be demoralized. I've been demoralized. When Nixon got impeached, that was it, man. That was my indoctrination into demoralization. And I never want to go back there again. And I will fight tooth and nail to not be demoralized. So it's all mindset. You just got to understand this. You got to understand this. Okay. You must wrap your head around it. It's important. Okay, let me check in with some of you guys, and I got a video for you. I'm gonna show you this video. You're gonna laugh your ass off. All right, let's see what we have here. Let's see what we got going on. Too late, already demoralized. The interview with the parents of the little girl seemed pretty real, but again, there was so much theater. Right? Yeah. Yeah, Joe, you've already been demoralized. Okay. You know, what are you gonna do? You're gonna live with the demoral. You know, what does demoralization mean? Really? You know, there's two levels of demoralization, or the word moralization. One, demoralization means that your morale, your morale, or the qualities that you have every single day that allows you to live in the world, they're eradicated. It also is indicative that your morals and your scruples have been removed from you, so that you're willing to do anything, right? That your threshold for aberrant or self-destructive behaviors becomes, greater, right? It's greater. And, who's the gatekeeper of that? Who's the gatekeeper of that? You are, the individual. And look, life is hard sometimes, right? Life can be rough. I've seen it. I've lived some of it. I've seen it with people. And, this is not a, we're not living in Disneyland here. Okay. And we are, but we aren't. This is a tough place. And it's easy to get demoralized. But in order to get through this place and to be able to move on, so that when you get to where you're going after this place has the curtains drawn, you theoretically, you don't want to take your demoralization with you. Just trust me on this. You don't want to do that, because then it'll just haunt you forever, and you got to deal with it eventually on the other side. And when it's on the other side, there are no filters and no buffers. And by the way, the filters and the buffers are dissolving here as well. Okay. All right. My morale is dragging. My moral is getting better. Good. Good on you. So you built up your morals, and then your morale should be able to follow. Okay. Have I looked at her chart yet? Not yet. She's a Capricorn. She's a late Capricorn, which, again, when we deal with Saturn and Jupiter conjuncting her sun, it makes her very, very electable at this point in time. Okay. Very electable. I just know that. I know she's a Capricorn. Okay. All right. Deanna McKay says that's true. Last name always ties in Dutch connected. See Miles Mathis. I like Miles. I think he's really good. I think he's got a few holes in his game, but he's definitely worth staying in touch with. We all have holes in our game. I'm not perfect. Shit. Okay. What else do we have here? I really don't think they're even a virus. I don't think it's a virus. I don't think that an MRAP is not just a tank with wheels. An MRAP is a vehicle that has a piece of technology that can make your skin burn at 600 yards. That's what an MRAP is. And all you have to do is remove yourself from the microwave field. The LRAD is the same thing, only it's auditory, make your ears bleed. So now all of a sudden they're bringing them out. Gee, wonder why. Okay. You can test positive and have 99.9% surviving the horror. Yeah. Yeah, I think the Corona thing, we've talked about this before. I think there's a there, but it's not the there that they're marketing. I think that that the there that's there has to do with something else. And we've talked about this before, a little bit fungal, and we're all, consuming, whatever they're spraying in the fucking sky and all that other stuff, right? So, we take in these contagions all the time. All the time. It's like the golden buffet of contagion. And I think with 5G stuff, they can probably click the switches on any number of things, right? Yep. Okay. I'm going to play you a video. You guys are going to love this. This is going to put a smile on your face as I make my exodus out of here today. I'll say goodbye after the video is over. This is good stuff. Really, really good stuff. I'm going to put another, it's never been proven. Yeah, I agree. We got a mayor. We got a mayor here in Texas, Rockwall, Texas. He's like, "Fuck you, Greg Abbott. No mask for you. No mask for us." So Rockwall is opting out. Rockwall is opting out. Okay, here comes this video. Have fun with this shit. Then I'll come back and I'll sign off here. Let's see. Where's she? Okay. This is hilarious. Enjoy this.
What's your position?
Here we go. All right, here we go. Let me just rewind this thing. All right, so this guy is a protester, and he is a so-called black American male, and hold on, and he's fronting as a white lesbian. Have fun. Oh, come on, let's do this.
What's your position?
Oh, YouTube does not want me to play this damn thing.
And we
hold on.
So if you talk to me,
Here we go. Here we go. This is hilarious.
I am not racist. You are the stupidest human I have met.
Okay.
Okay?
I will.
You're a human. I'm a human. You will love no one. So what's your cause? What's your cause?
Well, first, what's your position?
I'm gay.
I am too.
What is this? Why does it say one man and one woman?
I'm the happiest man in the world.
Why does your sign say one man and one
I'm
woman?
100% gay.
Why does your sign say one man and one woman?
Because this is the right and natural way.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Why are you having
words don't mean
Turn
anything
around.
today.
Turn around. Marriage always one man and one woman. So you're saying that gay people can't get married?
I don't believe in special rights.
But you're black.
And,
How could a black person be a bigot in this country?
Well, I'm not black. I'm a white lesbian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, a boy could be a girl. Really?
No, you're making a mockery.
No,
So
you're making a mockery, sir.
So why do you believe then that what about before civil rights and that black people had to drink at different fountains?
I know. Was that wrong?
Yeah.
It was legal.
No, you got your civil rights, which is wonderful.
No, wait. It was legal.
I'm not a racist in any shape or form.
I'm not a racist either.
Well, you're a black bigot.
No. I'm a white lesbian.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Address me as a white lesbian.
Oh.
I'm not black. A boy could be a girl, and a girl could be a boy. So if I'm not black. So if you talk to me, you address me as a white lesbian.
Okay, white lesbian.
Okay, now we can talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have never seen a white lesbian that's obviously a black man that's bigot.
Oh, I never seen a man that is gay based on science.
I was born gay and
No,
I'm proud to be gay.
What? So when the doctor said, "Congratulations, Mr. Johnson, you have a 5 pound, 6 ounce, what? Gay man? Gay male?" No, because you're not born a behavior.
I'm born who I am, and you were born black.
Look, see, I told you I'm a white lesbian, and you won't acknowledge me as a white lesbian,
Because
but you want me, so you're not gay.
You're making a mockery.
No, you're making a mockery.
No.
And it's this artificial intelligence. The same thing is laws that are based on hypocrisy and bigotry. Nazi Germany.
You're the bigot.
No, you are.
No, sir.
You're special. You changed the definition of marriage. Only your people can do that. Only your people. Only gay people can change the definition of marriage. Are they equal or special?
Are you special?
No, I'm equal. All human beings should be treated equally, not specially.
Sir,
so
you're ridiculous.
No, you don't have no
sense.
That's
my opinion.
No, you have a right to your own opinion.
Okay, well, you enjoy your white lesbian day, black man.
Thank you, and you enjoy your gay lifestyle.
And you hold your sign and make a fool of yourself.
And we will stop this nonsense. It will get overturned.
You are the nonsense.
It will get overturned because you guys believe in the law. So when we overturn it, you will accept it, right?
How is a black man? How could you be
How
such
can
a
a
bigot?
white lesbian?
No, you're
No,
you're the first black bigot I've met.
You the first? So you're telling me a boy could be a girl? Is that stupidity?
You're stupid.
Can a girl be a boy?
Sir, you're the stupidest man I've met, and I don't care what color you are.
I will love you and tell you the truth.
I'm not racist.
I will not lie. Yes,
you are the stupidest human I have met.
Okay.
Okay?
So
you're a human. I'm a human.
And I will
you
tell
will
you the
love
truth.
no one.
I will love you and tell you the truth. I won't lie to you.
You're a hate
People
spreader.
that are afraid of you lie to you.
No, you spread hate.
There is no gay gene. What's the name of the gay gene? ABC? What's the name of the gay gene?
What's the name of the stupid gene?
It's called John.
No, it's called whatever your name is.
It's called
Congratulations. You have shown me America is really fucked up.
No, we're going to change things. So
no, you have a good day. So what's your cause?
That shit was hilarious. That shit was hilarious, right? Was that good shit or what? Huh? You watched it this morning, Terry? That was just freaking class. That to me, that's your true note in Gemini right there. That guy would just kept flipping the script and kept flipping the script and kept flipping the script, kept flipping the script. He twisted that guy in knots, man. Just twisted him in knots. The guy filming thinks he's so smart. He totally owned him. He tied him up like a pretzel. Totally. Do you have a name for the stupid gene? Yeah, Johnny. Sorry, Johnny Cruz. Has nothing to do with you, brother. You got the smart gene, okay? That was, yes, Johnny. You need to address me as a white lesbian. Oh my God. If you don't see the irony of that, and especially you, YouTube, you got to see the irony of that. That is amazing. All right. You got to go out on a little bit of a laughter, a little bit of a roll. All right. If you like the video, thumbs up, subscribe, do that stuff, hit the bell. If you want to support the show, there'll be a link. You can do all that. And I'm off. I got to go do a reading. After that, I'm calling people up and setting up appointments. Okay. Use your head in order to discern what's real. Your heart said what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Bye for now. And you get the heart action. All right. I'll see you tomorrow.